Thank you for tuning in tonight for our 2021 Virtual Shotgun House Month series. My name is Nathan Lott, and I work with the Preservation Resource Center of New Orleans. Tonight, I'll be your Zoom host, and in just a minute, you'll meet our special home host and my colleague, Anna Pernis, who is going to be our guide for the virtual tour. Tonight's program is the fourth installment and the second home tour in Shotgun House Month. So if you missed the earlier programs, including those on the history of shotguns and design tips for shotguns, be sure to go check them out at our website, prcno.org. Tonight we'll be touring the North Hennessy Street home of Ryan Bordenave. Ryan joined the Downtown Development District in 2008, and he serves as a retail attraction specialist for the DDD. He has an immense knowledge of Canal Street in particular. He is a lifelong New Orleanian, a graduate of Brother Martin High School, and he's currently an alumni board member at Brother Martin, and also a graduate of University of New Orleans. Outside of his work life with the DDD, he is also a media consultant for NPR member station WWNO 89.9 FM, and he has renovated 2 century-old houses in the Mid-City neighborhood, which he is proud to call home. Before we get started, a few housekeeping notes. Let me begin with gratitude to our Shotgun House Month sponsors who have made this month of virtual events possible. They are Entablature Design and Build and Entablature Realty, Clandestine Event Rentals, Axelrod and Associates Home Inspectors, Colmex Construction, Green Coast Enterprises, Atomic Architecture, Claire Lewis Designs, Durable Slate Company, Preservation Title, Ellie Sanders and Isabel Sanders, iMoto, and 89.9 WWNO. So thank you all for making Shotgun House Month possible. I also want to thank a few key sponsors of PRC's other ongoing programs. The Hellas Foundation and Klein Lemon Esperanza Fund for support of PRC programs, Ella West Freeman Foundation for specific support to our conservation and education programs, and the Eugenie and Joseph Jones Family Foundation for support of our Revival Grants program. I also want to make sure to thank all of our PRC members and donors who might be watching. You as members of Preservation Resource Center are what make possible our work to preserve New Orleans' historic architecture, neighborhoods, and cultural identity. The PRC is a 501c3 nonprofit, and we rely on the support of members and donors to do the work to protect the authenticity of our city. We are asking our viewers to consider a donation of $25, which is what we would normally be charging for a ticket to an in-person house tour. So if you are watching our virtual shotgun programs, I hope you'll make that $25 donation, or I'll be glad if you go above and beyond that. All the donations that we receive during Shotgun House Month are going to be earmarked for a very special program we call Revival Grants. Revival Grants makes free home repairs to low-income homeowners in the Tremaine neighborhood and helps them get relief from potential city fines in that historic district. So it's already helped well over a dozen people in that neighborhood in the last year alone. And with your generous support, we can scale that to more neighborhoods throughout the city and help more people stay in their homes and make repairs that they want to do, but are not financially resourced to do. There's also something in it for you. Donors of $25 and above will receive a complimentary copy of our digital design guide, which is filled with 3D tours and information about paint colors, materials, products that you're going to see used on all of our featured houses. So if you're looking for design ideas for your own place, you definitely want to step up, make that donation, and get the digital design guide. And while you're at our website, you can check out PRC's varied merchandise, which is all on sale during the month of June. We've got t-shirts, masks, tote bags, but also a wide variety of books, great for summer reading on the beach. Again, it's all 20% off this month. While you're at the website, you can find our events calendar, which is full of not just Shotgun House Month events, but also our Maintain Right series, which is ongoing. Maintain Right offers a slate of free virtual programs to provide homeowners with the knowledge to spot potential problems in their houses and find ways to address them, including who to call when the problem requires a professional. Classes range from topics on termite protection to energy efficiency. Finally, I want everyone who's watching to know that you can see us, but we can't see you. So after our tour, there will be a Q&A time with Ryan and Anna, and I will be reading your questions. So please submit your questions anytime during the discussion. You can do that via the Q&A function or the chat function. And those are at the bottom of your Zoom screen. I'll be monitoring the questions and we'll relay those, as I said, after we first get a walkthrough and a tour. So now I'm going to kick it over to my colleague, Anna Pernis and Ryan.
Thank you, Nathan, so much for the introduction, and thank you to all of our sponsors again, and our attendees for joining us tonight. I'm Anna Pernis with the Preservation Resource Center. I'm the Director of Conservation and Education. I'm here with Ryan, the homeowner, at his 1912 neoclassical revival double shotgun that he renovated himself. And I'm going to let him take it away. Thank you for having us tonight.
Well, thank you for being here. Thanks to all of the folks at POC. I've been actually a fan of the organization for a long time, going back to my high school years when I first got into this particular shotgun-style houses in New Orleans. I can remember actually going to the PRC's office when it was on Julia Street, reading those big tabloid preservation and print magazines and sifting through files and just information about what was available. Lifelong, endeavor and just really love affair of these types of houses, and it's been a real pleasure to be able to do one of my own.
Thank you.
And so here we are here at 615 and 617 North Tennessee Street in the City Port Triangle section of New Orleans, Mid-City, and I'm going to take you through the home and everything from the front end to the back end. I don't think there is anything, as I was telling Anna a moment ago, I don't think there's anything at this point in time, maybe the driveway, which is coming up after the street gets fixed. But everything has been touched, from the landscaping package. Certainly the house was repainted. I'm on my second painting of the house. We'll talk about that in a minute. We'll take you through it, and you'll get to see also, all of your audience will get to see the latest project, which is the deck that I'm rebuilding as we speak. And literally an hour before the show went live, my carpenter was back here, so there was a mad dash to get that wrapped up for the presentation and the video today. So the front of the house, right? So this is a 1912 neoclassical revival shotgun double, and both sides have been completely restored. And as you see here, it has been recently repainted, which was a nice opportunity that I had in 2019 to go through that effort yet again. The first painting was done when I first bought the house. Painted it in a sage green color. It was a Benjamin Moore color called Mystic Green. Now it's in a grayish tone, but it all really came together nicely with French quarter green shutters, this terracotta red for the porch, as well as the traditional white trim. So what we have here are all the original architectural features on the house. We have the original door, the diamond door with the arched glass. Part of the painting process, I actually did replace the glass. There was a Florentine glass, and I felt, it was time to replace grandma's glass with something a little bit more modern, but still, again, being respectful of the house's architectural heritage. So I chose this milk wash glass you see here. The windows are all original. A couple of the stained glass panels that you see on both sides of the house, both the left and the right side, have indeed they've been replaced. And the other aspect that I think you'll want to note is that the glass artist that I chose was right here in New Orleans, Carol Flannery. She's known by a number of folks in those circles, and she did a great job of matching the glass pretty close to the original that you find on the house. Another thing I wanted to note is that at the top of the home, which if you step back just a little bit, then you will see the gables on the top of the home. There are three. And when I bought the house, the one on the left was actually not in existence. It was actually just a piece of plywood. So I had a local artisan, Steve Jelpy. Some of you may know that name. He actually built the frame for me. And again, Carol Flannery did the glass install. Another couple of cool aspects of the house. It actually has a faux slate roof. I was able to get a grant from the recovery grant program that was administered by the state of Louisiana about 10 years ago. So I have a faux slate roof. It's actually done in three colors. It is a kind of like a purple color, a green color, and a gray color. So if you actually could step back and see it from a distance, it really does look pretty slick. The rooster comb finial, that was an addition that I decided to put on the home. Kind of taking a look at some of the homes that are also on the block, the one behind us. It also has a rooster comb, so I did put one on mine. And along the edge of the house, I have ridge caps, Hecker tile ridge caps, as well as custom-made china vents. So while the house no longer had its original fireplace mantles, I certainly wanted to pay homage to architectural features from that time period. And while, again, you can't see them being this close as we are on the front of the home, if you step back, you would be able to see those architectural details. The foundational elements, all of the original architectural features on the house are still intact. Nothing was lost. Nothing was replaced. The enhancements that I have done include adding shutters on all 8 of the windows, 4 on each side, as well as the fully functional louver-style shutters. They were produced by a company in New Orleans, unfortunately no longer in existence. The gentleman who actually produced them for me, Carl Kessler, works now in the movie industry. A couple other interesting things that I wanted to point out. Last year, my neighbor Rick D'Angelo and I, we decided to team up and put string lights on our 2 homes. So talk about a really amazing effect. They're on right now, but as a result of still having a lot of sunlight in the area, you can't see them. But come here, come pay me a visit around 6:45, 7 o'clock, and I promise you, it is the coolest effect down this alley, this driveway, to see them illuminate this stretch of the house. My next big project, as I mentioned a moment ago, I would love to do some work with the actual driveway here. I have not touched this thing since I bought the home 16 years ago, but we are slated to have the street repaired. City of New Orleans and its contractors are doing a lot of work to many of the streets in this area. As a matter of fact, just 2 blocks away, the 900 block in North Tennessee is getting redone, and we're very close to having this block get completed as well. The landscape, and let's talk about that for a second. So when I first got here, there was no landscape. As you kind of hand down the block and see the grass at the adjacent homes, that is pretty much what existed here. There were no trees. There was no ground cover. So I actually took the opportunity to just landscape this area here and put in the 2 $2 trees, as well as the Japanese maple that you see at present. There were no curbs, so I did a makeshift curb with what I had to work with. Went around the corner to the brick company, Masonry Products, bought some old school used Chicago bricks, and actually just created a border to create a curb for the home. But pretty much everything that you see here on the house is as original as you can get. Of course, I added new mailboxes, small architectural details and elements just to bring the house to 21st century standards, but always tried to pick elements that I thought would be, harmonious with this house here. Nothing too out of scale. This is a small scale shotgun house. As you may have read in the article in Preservation in Print, I do have another home that is not too far away from here. Call that house the Honda Accord. Maybe you call it, the Toyota Avalon or the Lexus. This home here is really more like the Honda Civic. I've been in double parlors from 1850s, Greek Revival mansions throughout the city. It's the same concept. 2 rooms, typically connected by pocket doors. Those rooms are usually larger, depending on the scale of the home. Much higher ceilings, maybe more ornate, more moldings. But the concept across the board is the same. As I alluded to in the magazine article, in the Preservation Print article, this is my man cave. It's my living room, but it's also my man cave. And what I've done here is try to make it feel, like a guy's residence, but also, make it feel like it's a nice home. Someone actually lives here. And so I've got, collection of furniture from Williams Sonoma, primarily throughout this room here, restoration hardware, there's some elements there. The newest feature, if you actually go back into the magazine article or the web story, and look at this room, you will see that there was a ceiling fan in this room. And kind of getting ready for the video today, I decided to go ahead and install 2 light fixtures that I've had since last year, and I just put them in the last couple of weeks. But this is a look that I actually discovered first at a men's clothing store that's owned by Joe Rotolo on Magazine Street, in the lower part of Magazine Street. He has these at his store. Always like them. They call these the wagon wheel chandeliers. And had an opportunity to buy one on Wayfair of all places. Very, interesting to note that here's DH Homes yet again. This was just before their 1913 renovation of their Canal Street facade. And then these buildings here, which are the Turo buildings, this is just prior to their 1917 facade update. So again, most of what you see there is very much intact today, hardly, lost thanks to the good work. Thanks to the good work that you did, Anna, when you were at the HDLC, making sure that, what makes New Orleans so special still gets to remain here. Take a look on this wall here. This is a great one. This is actually a 1909 photograph of the Maison Blanche building. Today, of course, you would know it as the Ritz-Carlton. And, of course, the Audubon building, which is today the Saint Hotel, which makes this photo so special or so interesting is that you can clearly see that the building in the middle, which was the S.H. Crest building, was not yet existing. And you can see that there's some structural elements in this lower section here. Basically, that was just seating for Mardi Gras parades. So sandwiched in between the 2 buildings was seating that they took advantage of before the other building was constructed within the next year.
That's awesome. I would have never imagined that they'd use that, such big real estate for that.
Exactly. And think about the width of that building. They could have seated a lot of folks in that stretch. Then we'll come over here and kind of fast forward the timeline a little bit. And let's just take a look at this image. Again, same as some of the earlier shots that you saw, but just a little bit later. This is a 1940s era image of the 800 block of DH Homes. You can kind of see it's looking a little more modern. The storefronts are beginning to change a little bit, but again, the buildings are still very much intact. I know that the story talked about my home audio collection. Talk briefly about that. So again, I'm an old school music guy. I got the oldest of the old and the newest of the new. I can play everything on my iPad, which ties directly into the speakers and the receiver. Got the receiver and the DVD, a couple of DVD players. Yeah, there's more.
Yeah.
There's more. But wait, there's more. Receiver and one DVD player is kind of like an analog, and the other one is a Blu-ray. Of course, the cable box. You move up the ladder. You've got the DJ turntable, the Technics SL1200.
Tell us a little bit about this. I always
wanted one of these ever since I was probably 4 or 5. And
does it work?
Yeah, this thing works. Yes, indeed. Let's rewind that tape. Let's see it. Now I'd have to turn it on to actually play it, but yeah, no, it does indeed work.
Nice.
But the gentleman that I bought it from, came out of Phoenix. He was about 80 years old. He was he told me he was a semi-professional music producer, so he apparently had a lot of equipment. But he's like, I'm at that point in my life where it's time for me to start, passing it on to the next generation. So I got a really great deal on it. He threw some reels in it. And Danielle, for you, primarily the music that I have on the collection right now is Papa Smurf and Smooth Jazz from Congo Square. And I know you listen to that program on Sunday, so just a little shout out to you and I for listening to that program, because I know we both do enjoy it. But pretty much everything else that you see in the first room is, as it was when I found it, just totally, again, gutted but updated, insulated. It's comfortable in here. We have central air and heat now to keep the house cool. The color on the wall is agreeable gray, which is a fairly popular Sherwin-Williams color from what I've come to understand. Again, the windows are all original. The casing, the picture molding, the baseboards, the plinth blocks, the rosette blocks are all original. A couple of the elements I did have to have repurposed or recreated, but they were few and far between. So pretty much what you see here certainly all the woodworking is from 1912 when this house was built. Now, I will tell you, I did cheat a little bit, and I added the crown molding on the ceiling. And that's an interesting story. My dad, if you read the article in Preservation Print, was in construction, had his own business for a number of years. And this crown molding actually comes from one of his long-term clients, whom some of the viewers may know, because she is a judge here, Judge Veronica Henry, in Civil District Court. When she bought this molding for her house, she overbought it, and she gave it to my dad. She's like, Terry, take this and use it for your home. Well, my parents live in suburbia, right? Their ceilings aren't this high. And so my dad said, I'm going to give you that crown molding, and we put it in actually both the double parlors and in the kitchen. And we
she really overbought.
Yeah, she overbought. And so you'll see in the back room, which is my bedroom, it's not the same because we basically consumed it all by that point. But we still did a similar, double crown to just kind of finish out the rest of them. So, most people don't ever notice it unless I point out that the crown molding in the back room is different than the crown in the front rooms. There is no crown in the hallway, and there's only a thin piece of crown in the back. We'll talk about that.
You want to tell me a little bit about the pocket doors?
Yep. So if you go back into my old photos that I supplied the story, and I don't know if they were even open in those photos, but when I tell you they were pretty funky, They were painted like a light blue on one side, and they were painted in a mustard yellow on the other side. So I had Steve Jelby, who I referred to a little while ago when we were outside. Steve actually took the doors down, brought them to Strip East, who many of your viewers who have done restorations would know. Kavanaugh Farr, who owns it, stripped them down to what you see here. We put a nice coating on them, and Steve actually went in and adjusted that track. Again, this house is over 100 years old, so there's been some shifting in the structure. If you notice, it kind of show you a little secret. But notice that the door on the left is slightly higher than the door on the right, and that is because he actually adjusted the tracking on this door, kind of raised it up to the level where the house stands now. Right. That track is actually at the original level, since the place was constructed. But they actually do function. They're a little squeaky, but they do work, and it's just another nice element to have still functioning.
Yes, definitely.
So we'll come on in the second part. Oh, and I want to mention one more thing before I forget. So the sound. Then with tower speakers, no one does that anymore. I have 5 nice Bose cubes. If you zoom up, Kate, you'll see those on the ceiling mounted up, and they do crank. They can get loud. I can only crank it up when I know the tenants are here, but when they're gone. So come on in the second room here. We are in my office, and I always start up this room by stating that it did not start off as an office. Again, when I first did this house, I was about 27, 28 years old. And, what do you know when you're 27, you're 28? You buy a house and it's like, oh, what did I get into, right? Well, I always thought you should make the second parlor a dining room, right? Wouldn't that be logical? How much I used the dining room? 0. Absolutely not. I never used this it was basically a nice pass-through room. I eventually, parted with that furniture and ultimately bought an office for myself. Who would have thought about 7 years after buying this furniture, we would have had a pandemic, and I would have spent more time in this room than probably ever before. And I used this room. Trust me, I used this room quite a bit before the pandemic. This is truly, my number one used room in this house here. Got the piano and the keyboard behind me, and I'm frequently on that. Got the desk and the double bookcase here. So I spend a lot of time doing all of my various lines of work. Certainly your readers, if they read the article, know that I work for the Downtown Development District. But in addition to that, I manage my own 2 properties and a third property that is for someone else. I have my media business. I do a lot of work with NPR here in this market, and working with Mike Boger on just administrative-related projects to keep that going. I am usually pretty busy behind this desk. Yes. So this room here did convert about 7 years ago into an office, and it has I would say it has served me well. It was a really nice investment to make that conversion because I'm not looking back. I will tell you that. Some of the key pieces in this room here. I have this Essex Piano. If you know anything about pianos, this is what I call, I affectionately refer to as a poor man Steinway. So Steinway Pianos, the one and only, has 3 lines. Steinway, of course, still made by hand in New York City. They have a second line called Boston, which is built by Faux in their Japanese facility. And then there is the Essex line, which is actually built by Yongchang and their Asian facilities and their Chinese facilities. And that's what this is. Steinway design, but built by Yongchang in China. And but it's a great sounding piano. It's got the Steinway, it's got their touch. Even though it's not manufactured, it's got the touch. We are not going to play. Daniel's giving me that motion while I play. But we are not going to play on this too. Maybe
let's see when we come back around. We'll see how you feel.
We'll see. But the rug is a Ballard rug from next door. If you're familiar with that online magazine catalog. I bought this rug because I just thought it was cool. It's actually an old school French letter, and and I thought this would be a great room. It's a business letter actually, and so I thought this would be a great room for a room that's primarily used to conduct business. So
motivate you to get work done.
Yes, the deadlines also motivate me to get work done. But this is the rug of choice here. Interesting point to note about the fireplaces, and I know we're not going to see the other side of the house, but as you can imagine, the other side of the double parlor is pretty much the mirror image of this side. This fireplace, however, is different than the other 3. So the one behind me on the other side, the one on that other unit, and the one that you can see right here in this room, they all look like that fireplace. However, if you look a little closer, this fireplace has a little bit more detail to it. It's a little more ornate. And, again, I don't have any story behind it, but I do believe that at some point, these are wood fronts. And I think that the charcoals might have damaged it a bit. And so the homeowners had to replace it. And they probably couldn't get an exact match, but they got something close to it. And that's what they got. And so it's slightly different than the others. But, again, just one of the little nuances of this home here. Photos on the wall, with the exception of the 1930s era Canal Street image during Mardi Gras. These images are basically photographs, or not even photographs, newsprints of the newspapers that I found under the linoleum when I took the linoleum off of the floors here. So when I ripped the linoleum off, there were several layers of linoleum that had been layered, over the course of time. And to get down to this hardwood floor, I literally saved a garbage bag of old newspapers, primarily from 1948 and 1954. And so what I've done was just taken a snapshot of a variety of them. You can see here. This is cool because New Orleans used to do this thing in the late summer called the Community Bargain Days. This is actually from August 15th, 1954 to be exact. And this is actually the Krause department store on Canal Street. What I find to be extremely funny is the price point. So an entire dining set, the table was $99.95, or the 3-piece modern bedroom, $99.95. You can't buy the chair today for $99.
Absolutely not. I was going to say.
So that was a cool one. I thought this one was kind of cool. I love the headline. Little old New Orleans is no more. This is like in 1954, right? Little old New Orleans is no more. She's a big bustling metro. And, you go on and read the story, and it talks about, how New Orleans was really beginning to develop Jefferson Parish. It wasn't just Orleans Parish anymore. They were spreading, further west. So that was a really interesting piece to say. And again, just some others. The ones over there, I think, are primarily tied to movies that were playing at some of the theaters around town in the city at that point in time. On the bookcase, we'll talk about some of my items on the bookcase. Some of the stuff at the very top are items that I've had since I was a kid. The robot, Pac-Man, the ostrich egg. I've had some of that stuff as young as, say, 7 years old. And it's just kind of stayed with me throughout that time. This is the shrine to my high school, to Brother Martin Crusaders. You may have noticed the flag up front. I stay very active in school. I have the pleasure of serving on the alumni board. And so I'm frequently there. It's always good to get back to the school. on this side of the shelf, just friends and family, things I've collected over the years. Always prompts to point out, and I know he would kill me if I said something because he is very shy, but I'm going to say something anyway. But if you recall, about 2 years ago, there were a group of kids from New Orleans that were on a baseball team that won the Little League World Series. Yeah. And my nephew, Stan Wilt, of the image. This is a photo of Stan and Scott Frazier when they were on Fox and Friends, and my nephew on the left, Scott, the head coach, on the right. That was such an amazing time. It's like the first time in my life I can actually say I had a celebrity in my family. That was so cool. But Stan is actually now with Brother Art. I just talked to my family. He is on the road to Birmingham, playing a big tournament right now. It's going on this weekend for the school. And this baseball was actually one of the balls that was signed by the entire Little League team. So when these kids in 10, 12 years, 15 years, hold on to that. I'll hold on to this ball here because maybe it will be worth something. At the very top, I've got my lightsabers. I am a Star Wars, self-proclaimed Star Wars fan. One is custom, one was a limited edition. And this interesting piece, many of you know this gentleman in New Orleans. His name is Bob Tannen. If you don't know Bob Tannen, you know his better half, Gene Nathan. Bob makes sculptures out of coat hangers, and I was truly anything. Bob made this piece, and he said, "You got to think about my sculptures." I'm like, well, how big is the sculpture? And he comes in the room with this stuff. That's pretty cool. So
you could have ended up with this big one in the front yard. But
stuff in there. They do. But yeah. So kudos to Bob and Gene. It's always a pleasure.
I do have to ask, how do you customize a lightsaber?
It's easier than you think. There's a whole cottage industry of small companies that actually build lightsabers. Actually, see if I can reach it. I will show it to you. I will show the audience. So unfortunately, I've had this for a long time. I unfortunately lost the blade in Hurricane Katrina. So this is an early custom lightsaber. But there's a plasma blade that you insert into the hilt. You click it on, and I'm telling you, it looked like, I was ready to battle Darth Vader himself. But if you want, you can get a zoomed-in shot of that. It is all machined, and it's got the elements that you certainly would expect from an original prop from the film. So if there are any fans of the PRC that also like Star Wars, that is something that
is pretty cool. I will say, during the pandemic, I went through all of them.
You went to the movies.
My husband had time, and we had time, so we went through them all.
Which favorite episode?
I'm not good at it.
You guys say?
I always was raised with the ones with the little bears. I'm not good. I'm not a good fan.
The little bear.
Yeah. Sorry, Andrew, if you're watching.
But I know what you're talking about.
The older ones.
The 1980s era was Star Wars and Hope, The Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah, I think it's Empire Strikes Back.
I think that's one. Empire Strikes Back is the best one. Episode 8. Never let Ryan Johnson direct the Star Wars film. That's my opinion.
We'll keep that for another. That's another
topic. We'll keep on rolling through the house. So come on into the hallway. Typical little shotgun hallway. Let's put some light on it here. Yeah. Again, this is the section that connects the center of the house, from the front to the back end. It's a four shotgun house, double parlors in the front, hallway with a bath in the middle, and then a kitchen and a bedroom in the back. So what I did was give a shout out to my buddy Scott Ott, who is a designer in New Orleans. He and his wife, in their home, they live in Old Metairie. They have a hallway very similar to this. And I actually kind of emulated the look that they did in their house when I created the scheme in here. It's not much you can do in a small hallway, but just give it some really cool paint colors. And this is what we did. So come on in, Kate, I'll show you the bathroom. Bathroom was totally done. If you saw that photograph in the magazine, that bathroom was in pretty poor shape when I bought this house. And it has been completely gutted and completely redone. I will say that the coffer tub is the original coffer tub. I did send it out to Southern Refinishing, which does, primarily that type of work throughout old New Orleans bathrooms, porcelain fixtures. The floor itself is a marble floor with a basket weave pattern in the middle that came from 4 and 4. Who doesn't like 4 and 4? Everybody goes there. And I decided to go a little more modern with the Kohler toilet. and then a little more traditional with the sink. I had my buddy Saul who did the build out in the bathroom go with about a 6-foot wainscoting, V-board wainscoting, and he capped it off with a chair rail and then broke it up with some separations. He did just a phenomenal job. Interesting point to note: the light globe is a recent addition. Maybe 3-4 weeks ago on a Sunday, I changed the light bulb. The bulb burned out. About 8 o'clock that night, I heard a crash, and I knew immediately what it was. And that the globe came from Rejuvenation, which is a pretty cool store. It was architecturally correct for the time period. Lost a really amazing globe, but I turned right around and bought this one here, the traditional schoolhouse globe. And that has literally only been on that light fixture for about maybe 2 or 3 weeks now. Last year during the pandemic, I took an opportunity to just do a few little updates to this bathroom. Did the striped wall to kind of play off of the wall that you see here. You see the striped wall in my bathroom in just a little bit. And I added just pieces of some fun artwork in on the ledge of the wainscoting. But it has all the original transoms that you see here, and if you look up Kate, you'll see that I do have the access to the attic in this area, as well as the infrastructure for the central area heat kind of ties into this area of the house. So this way, the old meets the new. It's got a lot of infrastructure literally built into this wall. The circuit panels behind it, the house alarm, the thermostat, all the major systems can be found right here in the space. Again, it's nicely tucked away. So you don't really notice that it's there.
And I think what's interesting about it really becomes a transition. Like you said, this was a living space before.
Right.
So you flipped them. The kitchen used to be in the back, and this was a living space. And
that's right.
And I think typically these would have been the bedrooms with the bathroom in the middle, and then you would have moved your way back to.
Yeah, so I always, there's one aspect that I can honestly say I did not like about shotgun houses, and it was the fact that you had to walk through somebody's bedroom to get into the kitchen. And although typically I would still take food in my bedroom, I had this kind of like this psychological notion that I don't have to bring them any further than the kitchen if I don't want to. I can close that door and kind of keep them in these rooms here, this room, and certainly the front half of the house. But I just never liked that notion of walk through somebody's bedroom to get to the back of the house. So I certainly took that opportunity. And I remember having a conversation with my dad, like, what do you think about this? And he says, look, as long as your plumber is okay with moving the lines, because the lines run from the front of the house anyway. So it was a really cool opportunity to make this kitchen. The island of this kitchen kind of came about, and I think I was sharing this with Neil when she first came over here for the photo shoot. The island was kind of an afterthought because of the way this room lays out. The doors are on like 45-degree angles, right? So you have a door that you just came through, and there's a door on the opposite wall. And so as a result of having a door and a door, a tall window, a fireplace, I literally only had 2 walls to work with to put cabinetry and appliances. So like, okay, all right, so I laid out the kitchen, and I'm like, oh wait, that's the sink one. And so that's me, I'm going to put the sink. But I couldn't put it there because the window dropped so low, and I didn't want to damage. I didn't want to take away, again, the whole idea was to not destroy any of the art. I didn't want to shorten the window, put another window in. So I couldn't put it here because I had this fireplace. So I'm like, well, the house is raised. So why don't I just put an island in the middle? And kind of laid it out and took it to the cabinet designer, and I think that will absolutely work for you. So I put this in, and it has been a really cool feature to have to kind of run back and forth between the refrigerator, the other wet side of the house, the refrigerator and the dishwasher, and then the hot side of the house, which is the stove top and the oven. Interesting. Another interesting thing to note is that originally this room here did not have the look that it has today. Again, this house has evolved over the course of time. Certainly didn't have the plantation shutters that came many years later. The subway tower that you see on the wall was added years later. And last year I did another change. I'm gonna give a shout out to some of the viewers that may know this gentleman, Levi Jansen. Levi was the general manager of Palace Cafe for years. And they have a great house. They recently sold their house, and he wanted me to buy it. I'm like,
we're in the midst of a pandemic, man. I can't buy. I'm not buying a house right now, but his house so they moved. They sold the house. They left New Orleans, moved to Massachusetts. He bought a historic house up there, and he's doing kind of like a general store with a live workspace above. So he's got a pretty cool deal from what I hear. But his house was so cool that I actually took a page out of their playbook and came back to this kitchen and did a few extra elements in 2020 that I wasn't really anticipating. Right. That included painting the island. Their island and their house, they have three small kids, 2 boys and a little girl. And he said, Ryan, as you can imagine, these kids kicking the chairs, kicking that island, it was getting dirty really quick. So they decided to paint their island in the navy blue. And it was around that same time that my old toaster oven had pumped out after years of service. So I went online.
I see the theme now.
We got a theme here. So I bought a blue toaster oven, had Saul Corral, who does most of my carpentry work, paint the wall blue, and again, another page out of Levi and Wesley, his wife's playbook. They had pothos hanging from their windows. And so my neighbor Rick, who I referred to a little bit earlier, Rick is a killer. He's a master when it comes to gardening, right? And he's a master at plants and so forth. So he had one growing in a vine, just one stem. He took that thing and split it, told me buy 2 pots. It's been about a year now. And here's what we've got. So it's really amazing to see what I've been able to grow. Home up. All I do is on Sundays, if I'm doing my laundry, if I'm listening to smooth jazz from Congo Square, like Danielle's listening, I water those, and that's about it. Just keep these blinds open; they get a lot of natural light. And,
those are good indoor plants that they'll never die. They'll just keep growing. Soon you'll have a whole curtain worth.
That's right. My other favorite story about the kitchen is the center light fixture. So this light was actually purchased at Lowe's, but it's patterned after a light that Restoration Hardware has. And, again, when you're renovating the whole house, you're trying to watch how much you're spending. Well, as you can imagine, Restoration Hardware not being a cheap store, that was about a $400 budget. Spend that much
money. You gotta save pennies
wherever you can get it. So I said, I'll buy that Lowe's version. So I went to Lowe's. I went to the store on Veterans because at that time, everybody was renovating in New Orleans. So the Elysian Field store had, you can buy anything. They were just running out of everything. All the inventory was constantly depleted. So I went to the Lowe's store and I knew where the light was and I couldn't find it. Man, it's so hot. And so I turned the corner on another shelf. There was one left, reduced down to $44. I grabbed that. I tell you, I grabbed that light fixture like I was holding a piece of gold, and you couldn't have wiped the smile off my face. I felt like I robbed Lowe's with this light fixture, and it's been a great fixture, and I don't see it changing. And as a matter of fact, I put 2 LED lights in it, and which means I'll never change it. I'll never have to change it again. So this light fixture will probably be here, certainly in my ownership of this home.
Yeah, that's awesome.
The photo theme or the theme of the images, I kind of took a page out of going back to Levi Jansen's House Cafe, the Brennan Company. They have a lot of these, pushed out advertising prints in their restaurant, and I always thought that was such a cool look. I wanted to emulate that here in my own kitchen space and cooking space. And so that is what we have, just a variety of sizes and different styles of that print. And that's what we've got. So
awesome.
We will go ahead and take you through my bedroom, which is the last room of the house. A couple of interesting stories here. So this was originally the kitchen. And you can tell that the room, if you kind of pan through the room, Kate, is slightly smaller than the other rooms, and that is because it does have, again, this was a later shotgun house. As you've heard me say before we started the interview, this is the last of what I call the really old school shotgun houses in New Orleans. And by being, the last of all the generations, it actually had a built-in closet. Now, this was the kitchen. And if you go back to the story that you may have read in Preservation Print, or if you saw it online, this room was just beyond funky. I mean, it was just funky beyond. There was a calendar on this very door. I could probably still find the thumbtack, although this door's been worked on, so it might have been sanded over by now. But there was a calendar on this very door from 1983.
Wow.
And that was the last time this house had been lived in. I found this house in 2004. I really didn't get into too much of the story about how I found the house on the internet, but I'll talk about that in a moment. But when Miss Helen, who owned the house, Miss Helen, her husband passed away, Mr. Henry, she stopped renting it. You know, she died in her 90s. When her husband died, she was in her 60s. So a little lady by herself wasn't going to feel comfortable renting a house out. So she just stopped renting. So the last tenants moved out in 1983, and it wasn't occupied. This unit was not occupied until I came along and started, rebuilding it, but didn't take occupancy until 2007.
Wow.
So it was a long time that this place did not have any use. But this was a kitchen. Now serves as my clothing closet and extra storage. Interesting to note. So on the other side of the house, there's a door on this wall, but on the other side, above us was some dead space because the ceilings for the two closets only went to the top of the closet. They did not go to the natural ceiling heights. Right. So I took advantage of some extra casing that I had that matched the house, from this house, as well as some rosette blocks, some picture molding. And had Saul, build some nice neutron molding for me. Again, you may have recalled that I said earlier, this molding was a little different than the molding in the front half of the house. But we bought some louvered style shutter doors and had that installed. So now I have two really cool upper storage cabinets in addition to the closet here. Yeah. I've kind of played off of that same theme that you saw in my hallway. By doing the straight wall on this side here, and the rest of the home is kind of painted. I call it, this is my Nautica room. So if you know Nautica clothing, it's truly a guy's bedroom. I've got the blue, the tan, the brown, and but I do really like the theme of this room here. Another thing to note, just like you've seen in many of the other aspects of the house, I did use the Walker display system to hang the artwork in this room as well. I did that last year. That was kind of one of my small projects that I did during the pandemic. But these systems, it's kind of a modern take on hanging your art on picture molding, which is really cool to do that. That's a great photograph of D.H. Holmes in the late 40s. And this one is a really amazing map of New Orleans from roughly 1884. And that was done during the first World's Fair of New Orleans, the World's Industrial and Cotton Centennial. So a very long time ago. And what's really amazing is you can actually see that the city planners, talking about great urban planning, they were actually planning the streets of Lakeview. Most of the names that you see on this map are still very much the names of the street today. His Pope, his Lane. You will recognize a number of these street names. Look, they were debating on whether or not this would be called London or Harrison. So they didn't even know if Harrison Avenue was going to be named Harrison Avenue. There was a chance, based on this map, that it might have been named London Avenue, which, as many of you know, London Avenue is another part of town. But just a really great map. That was a great find, and I bought it, had it framed, and kind of had it tucked away for the longest time. And then when I bought this art hanging system, I pulled it out and just started hanging it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't really take advantage of the picture rails, but that's a nice way to do it.
And honestly, I had not taken, it's been here since I renovated the house, and even before I renovated this house, it's been here all this time, and I had not taken advantage of it, but I thought this was a great opportunity to do so. So with that being said, we'll show you the latest thing that I'm doing on this house. As you may recall from the story in Preservation and Prints, it said that I am actually rebuilding the deck. And there weren't any photos of the deck, but we'll just say that it was time to rebuild the deck.
I'm glad we motivated you.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. It was time. My tenant was leaning on the rail, and it literally just disintegrated. And I'm like, you know what? Yeah, time to rebuild the deck. And I could have just done, a patch job on it, have the rail rebuilt, slap another, coat of stain or some polyurethane. But I said, you know what? It's time to rebuild the deck. So the old deck was the traditional, bought the wood from Home Depot, kind of, again, just a very traditional deck. The current product that I have is from Vision Wood. Many of you might know that store on Magazine Street. Mr. Greg McGavran, who owns it, has a really phenomenal gallery of products. And so we're going to show it to you right now. So just in the spirit of full disclosure, it is still a work in progress. It's mostly finished, but you're going to see, some of the wood products still kind of sitting in place as we, work through the remnants of it. So take you on outside. Are close to being finalized, but we're not quite there yet. And so what you have is we're gonna get some seating out here. It's ordered. I'm just waiting for it to arrive. You can actually see the wicker ottoman has arrived. I still haven't even gotten the cushion. The outdoor rug has arrived, but the remaining elements we're going to wrap the back of the wash shed in the wood product, and we're also going to have a gas grill installed here. And with some of the remaining wood, we're going to have some workstations. So for prep, and when the food comes out, I'll be able to have a workstation to sit that on. A couple of the new things that I've done back here. I just hung this sailcloth, literally not even 7 days ago. Brand new string lights, probably not even 2 weeks ago. And so again, this whole area got a total retreatment, but it was time. One of the things I did take advantage of when I started working in the backyard, again, not just in mid-city, but throughout New Orleans, having off-street parking can be a challenge. And being that I have a shared driveway on both the left and the right side, I took advantage of that. And about 10 years ago, I had pavestone done and 2 parking pads for both my vehicle and my tenant's vehicle. What was left, I heavily landscaped the back by the fence, which is a fairly new fence. We put that in. My neighbors actually, the 3 of us shared in the cost of that. So based on the linear frontage, we basically divided the cost 3 ways. And then we did a small garden with a fountain directly below you. So it's utilitarian, but it's also aesthetically pleasing at the same time. It's got a useful function, but you can still come out and enjoy it. And that makes for a great use of space when you have very limited space to work with. So we'll take you on through the house as we head on back inside. I think we're going to do some Q&A if that is good with the audience.
Yes, a reminder, put your questions in the chat or the Q&A feature, and we'll do Q&A in just a moment. Let me take a moment also to acknowledge that we did have some technical difficulties. I know some folks maybe saw the blank screen, especially if they were on Facebook with that connection there, and maybe if they were on Zoom as well. I saw some comments in the chat that there was a lag or that the feed disappeared. So I apologize for that. The wonders of Zoom and virtual events. But yeah, I think some folks might have missed some of the photography in the front room, so we can maybe recap a bit of that at the end. But for now, I'll just run through a couple of the questions that we've gotten. One person was interested by the age of the house, which I think you said 1912, and was wondering when shotguns first appeared in New Orleans. So who knows?
Question. So they were interested by the age of the house. So we said 1912. And they're asking when the original shotgun was.
Let me answer that this way. So here's what I know. When I had the pleasure of serving on the Physical Fleet, the Greenway, when it was still being created, I met this gentleman who actually owned a house at 920 Slate Street. And I shared this story with Danielle, actually. Apparently, this house was built by a guy with my last name. And my last name is not that common, right? So I always said, architecture and construction. My dad was in construction. Obviously, I have the love of it. And someone in the 1840s built some of the earliest shotgun houses in this city. So this house is at 920 Spain Street. It is a side hall, New Orleans shotgun house. And I know from what Sam, who owns it currently, told me that house was built in the 1840s. But so at least from that time period. But and I'm going to reference if I can get Kate to hand me on the shelf. So Kate, on the lower right shelf, you see that this says New Orleans houses. It's white to the left.
To the left. That
There you go.
We know this book well.
I bet you know that book very well. So we're going to reference this book and see if I can come up with the time.
A good date.
Yeah, because if anybody would know this man would.
And I think that you had mentioned that 1912 was really like the last of the old shop
that was
because
it.
we really started moving into craftsman buildings
That's
and
right.
bungalows.
That's right.
For construction.
That's exactly right. So if you look at again Creole cottages, which can be built in shotgun styles, it says here is early. Actually, most of the 3-bay cottages were built in the 1840s, as I just alluded to.
We're going with 1840s.
1840s. I think that is and I know that from aging that house. I did some research on 920 Spain Street, and certainly it's from that time period. I won't ever argue with Mr. Lloyd. Never.
Definitely not. And we actually have that book available at the PRC website and bookstore. So if anyone's interested, 20% off all June. Gotta throw in my little.
Good job. One other question that we have is, tell us about the restoration that you did to the flooring. I know you said there was linoleum that you ripped up. Did you have to do resurfacing or refinishing of the floors?
So talking about the floors, you mentioned that there was linoleum and paint. You went, scraped everything. They want to know a little bit about your process, what everything you went through.
Yep. So
blood, sweat, tears.
It's kind of a joke, but it's the honest to God truth. I swear that the floors both at this house and certainly at the other house that I did, the last handful of years, is the reason why I have a bad back now. These floors will literally break your back. And when you're digging through layers that consist of tile and then subfloor and then maybe linoleum and then tar, as was the case of the other property, that's some hard work. And my recommendation is if you're not willing to do it, hire somebody that you can get to just take those old floors out. But my resource for restoring these floors, he has done every project that I have been connected with, and some other projects that I have referred him to. And that gentleman is Mr. Juan Alonso Flooring Service. As a matter of fact, I met him from my next door neighbor, Don Valley, who has owned his house at 611 North Tennessee. Since 1984. He had Juan do his floors when he was my age. Don's now in his 60s, and those floors still look good all these years later. Almost 40 years later, they still look amazing. So Juan comes in. He's going to fuss at you. He's going to beat you up. If you have one box in the corner, he will beat you up. And because I'll never forget, he called me and he could tell me he was seriously like, fine, so come to the house today. And there was nothing on the floor, and there was something on the
So it's a clear space.
Clear space. So if you ever use Juan, make sure you clear that floor. Another funny sidebar story was I had asked Juan, I said, Juan, what do you think of these floors on a scale of 1 to 10? And what somebody says, on a scale of 1 to 10, Mr. Bordenave, a scale of 1 to 10, a 0. All right. I don't know what we're getting into. But yeah, hire a good floor refinisher. Once you slug through the layers and you provide a clean slate for the floor finisher, if they're good, they're going to be able to bring those floors back.
These floors are shiny now. They look great.
And then, I've had this floor refinishing was done in 2007. So, we are now more than 10 years into this. But, I do maintain them. I do try to take care of them. The way they show me how to maintain them with vinegar and water is how I take care of them. So
it's a good tip for people at home. I think everyone wants to throw bleach on the floors and not worry about it.
You cannot throw bleach on them.
Please don't do that.
All right. Well, here's another question. Actually, kind of two questions about the kitchen. The first is, where does the stove hood vent to? Does that actually vent to the exterior through the ceiling, or?
Oh, so your stove hood, I guess they're asking where it vents to.
Oh, that's a great question. That's a self-circulating vent.
It's self-circulating.
Yeah, so it has a chimney. There was nowhere to vent, honestly. There was. I mean, just think about it. Behind me was the bedroom. I honestly did not want to pop a hole. The ceilings in this house are 11 feet. then you have to punch through a whole nother layer. The attic is pretty high. I mean, you can stand up in my attic and not touch your head. So I did not want to punch in another hole in that roof. So I researched the various systems that were available and was able to buy a self-circulation kit for that.
Awesome.
As a matter of fact, the other house also has an undermount pro-style vent hood, and it too has a self-circulation kit. So really good for an older home when you don't want to punch through a wood siding or through a roof.
Or even just having that big vent running up the
exactly.
wall, these tall ceilings, it's a little distracting.
Yeah, it can be distracting and expensive to just run
Bring
that much fluid. Exactly.
Right.
So yeah, self-circulating in both cases.
That's great. And the other kitchen-related question is there a kitchen table? Where do you eat?
You heard that one.
I heard that one. I eat at my desk. It's just me in my house. So I typically work at my desk and I eat at my desk.
You'll have your outdoor kitchen soon.
Okay, yes. So I will be eating on that new sofa and ottoman hers too.
Yeah.
Looking forward to that. But yeah, honestly, I eat right here at the desk. Sometimes if it's something small, I'll just stand up at my kitchen counter and eat it there. And if I had more folks in here, I'd have to rethink some things, maybe put a pub table in the kitchen, or do something different with the island and have some bar stools kind of coming out. But for the time being, this black desk definitely
That's double duty. All right. So we also have a question about the vintage photo from Mardi Gras on Canal Street. Someone says, that's so cool. Where did you get it?
The vintage photo of Mardi Gras on Canal Street. They want to know where you got it.
I bought that online, actually. I want to say it was like all prints or all posters, something to that effect. Honestly, I just did a search for Canal Street, New Orleans. And, of course, it populated like 1,000 different images from, various time frames. And this one came up. And like, and so that was the one that I selected. And I had it framed at Lakeview Framing.
You might have mentioned it earlier, but what year is that?
About 1938. Yeah, mid to late 30s.
That was a crowded Mardi Gras, for sure.
One of the things I want to, Arthur Hardy would be a great resource to go to. I'd love to know what parade routes look like in, say, the 20s, 30s, and 40s. I don't think they were as long, they were as long then. They started below Napoleon Avenue and Magazine, they run up, they run up. Yeah, I don't think they really started that far up
That's a
down.
good question. Good thing to look into.
Yeah, I think they were much shorter, and they spent more time on Canal Street. I mean, you can see how far up that parade. I mean, it's past the Maison Blanche building. So, we're talking that thing might have been, that parade might have been as far as, say, Krauss Department Store, which is 1200 block now. Today, they basically hit Canal Street at St. Charles and turn right, and they don't even touch that end. Yeah. And of course, at that time period, they were also going into the French, which they don't do that anymore for fire and safety purposes. But yeah, it was either all posters or all prints where that particular image came from.
Great, thank you. Yeah, and while we're looking at that, I'll just relay a comment that some folks really like the dark color above the mantles, how that sets it off.
The mantles in the front room are painted in tricorn black, and the other room, which is the kitchen, is painted in pale navy, and the aisle is painted in that same color as well.
It's a nice way to make it pop.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because I thought about doing the exposed brick, but these fireplaces were a little weird since that they were skinny and then it kind of fanned out wide. And
they're really not meant to be exposed. That's
exactly. So I said, well, we're still going to make the wall, have an extra feature on it, and so that's why they were painted in this color.
That's great. So speaking of masonry things in a house, chimneys and also piers. So we have a question about whether you had to do any upgrades on the foundation.
Have you done any question? I have not had to do any work on the foundation.
That's nice.
I do think, I will say this, I certainly could do a little, let's call it a little shoring on this house, But I will say this house, we're not. One of the things that attracted me to it is the fact that when you look at the siding, it was pretty straight, and so obviously the previous owners were taking care of this building, and I've not had to do any major structural work on it. My other property on Alexander Street, by comparison, the previous owners totally shored and leveled that house and added extra piers. So while this house has 3 piers, one on each end and in the middle, that house has 5 piers.
Wow.
And they kick the back end a little higher, so the water actually flows up the roof really well. It's also slightly higher than the other 5 houses, which look just like it. Right. So again, I don't want to test this theory, but I think they brought it above what's called the base flood elevation for that street. And so again, I don't want to test the theory, but I'm hoping that if we have a flood like we did 50 years ago, that house will not flood. By the way, just so the audience knows, this house did not flood. I'm at the end of the City Park Metairie Road Bridge in this neighborhood. So while there was water in the street, and it did come up, being that the house is 3 feet off the ground, there was no water inside of the home. So.
It's incredible. You got very lucky for that. No foundation work, shoring.
Yes, very fortunate.
Knock on wood.
That's under your.
Yeah.
The real deal.
Another question about the condition of the interior walls. Did you have a lot of cracked plaster or drywall? Did you have to rehang sheetrock?
I heard that question. To the one that posed that question, you take a shotgun house that has been closed up since 1983, and it is not opened up really until 2004. And literally, from what my neighbor Don tells me, the previous owner, Miss Helen, would let the neighbors store file cabinets, and I heard there were lawnmowers and just random stuff in this house here. No ventilation. The windows were never open. But the plaster was in very bad shape. I saved a lot of the lap, that was behind the plaster, but yeah, it was rough, very rough. So all of the walls in the home are newly constructed. All of the baseboard casing, the flint blocks and the rosette blocks, as I mentioned, are original. And I actually had a little small mill shop on the side of the house. Using a heat gun and stripping chemicals, I actually stripped them all down myself.
Wow.
So
that's incredible. It's a lot of work.
Yeah. I did it on that house too, the one on Alexander Street, and I swear I will not do it.
That's another hold you to that, or
yeah.
In a few years we'll be doing a tour.
My back may not let me do it.
I mean, it gives you an opportunity to add insulation into the walls.
Exactly. Yes, to bring in modern systems. I think we all would agree the world is definitely getting hotter. I mean, here we are in June, and I mean, it's hot out there. This house here, it can hold a comfort. I can drop this house down to like 65 degrees if I choose. I can freeze this place. And the AC system, my dad installed it for me when he was still doing that work. And it is the original AC system, the first and only central air heating system. I've actually since replaced the one on my tenant side, but the one in my unit is the original, and I can still drop that thing down to 65, 60 degrees, and it will get that low. You can freeze yourself out in this house.
Nice.
So, and I think we're at maybe 73, 72 right now, and it's very comfortable.
That's great. Let me see here. We've got a couple of folks just saying thank you. That explains why the walls look so great.
They're saying that why the walls look so great.
Oh, yeah, these walls are 15, 16 years old at this point.
And I will say, just another little plug. We have a class coming up in a few weeks on plaster. Just debunking a few myths. And, if you do have plaster that is repairable, then what you can do with it, who to call, and if you don't, what to do next. So.
Interesting. I think plaster is an amazing product. Unfortunately, in both of my circumstances, I've not been able to use it. Mm-hmm. In this house, as I just mentioned, the house was just so far gone in terms of the physical conditions. It was just cracked everywhere and falling down. Yeah. So it came out. In the other property that I have, there were literally 3 layers of walls. There was plaster, and then quarter-inch sheetrock, and then half-inch sheetrock. There was no reveal between the casing and the sheetrock itself. It was all just kind of meshed in and heavily caulked. So you had the sheetrock on top of the casing,
Right.
which is not how it's supposed to look.
No.
So in that case, we took all of those walls out, insulated the house really well, central air heated it. And but in that particular case, I told my carpenter, I said, look, I want all flat walls. And it was not easy to sand all those walls to be flat, but those walls look more like a plaster style wall.
Okay, so it's a little that smooth look.
Exactly. Remember, keep in mind that in this particular renovation, it was my first one, so I was at my father's mercy. I was 27 years old at the time. Kind of, my dad called a number of the shots, not all the shots, but he was giving his free labor to me, so I kind of had to go with the flow, so to speak. But he would set my brother-in-law, Stan Wilson, and I, senior, up to for the day, and we'd keep going, and he'd come in and check our work. But when it came down to finishing up the walls here, he did put a small amount of orange peel on them. So there's a little bit of texture. It's not heavy texture, but if you get right on it, you will see it. And it's not anything that anyone's ever said, oh, that's not, a good looking wall.
Right.
It's a little bit of orange peel. But it is there. The other house, the Alexander Street property, it's smooth, totally smooth.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Ryan. Thank you, Anna. Thank you behind the camera team, Daniil and Kate. On behalf of myself, on behalf of Danielle, who is our executive director and was viewing with us tonight. We really enjoyed seeing your house and really appreciate your enthusiasm. And I hope you've got at least one more great restoration in you, maybe a couple great restorations in the future.
And Nathan, I will say this: I think the opening line of the story said it would take a special address to get me to move from this house. And I'll tell you where those streets are. It's very simple. My three favorite spots in New Orleans are still here in this neighborhood: Allard Boulevard. My LLC is Allard Station. It's named after that street because I'm such a fan. And the other two are also in the area: Delgado Drive. People love that street, and Wilson Drive in that park. So if I move, it's going to be one of the three. Nowhere else.
So tune in and cheers.
We'll see if I have a raised basement.
Thank you so much, everyone, tonight for joining us, and thank you again, Ryan.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yes. Good evening, everybody.
Have a good night.
Bye-bye.